What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a quick preview of the mid-season patch for Destiny 2 Season of the Witch. And so as we often see with seasonal content, Bungie will be pushing out a series of updates around the middle of the season, and these will affect various different aspects of the game. So there's the sort of sandbox portion, there's a bit more weapon tuning to come, as well as adjustments to armor and exotics. But Bungie have also outlined some of the roadmap for content we can expect to see later on this season, PvP mode rotations, but also live events, and we have the return of Festival of the Lost coming up. So as always, I hope you guys find the video useful today, and if you do, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Also be sure to get subscribed and I'll keep you posted with more Destiny content. But without further delay, let's get into it. So first up today, we should mention the mid-season update will drop alongside Festival of the Lost on the 17th of October. And so all in all, there should be at least a couple of points of interest for players. And starting out with the update for the game, outside of the sandbox, there is a change to some economy stuff. So Bungie are lowering the costs of exotic focusing, and Tier 1 focusing will now cost 30,000 Glimmer, as well as 10 enhancement prisms. And Tier 2 will cost 60,000 Glimmer and 2 Ascendant alloys. And so we can see they've eliminated the exotic cipher cost for Tier 2 focusing, and the Tier 1 cost will move from using Ascendant alloys to enhancement prisms instead. And so exotic focusing should be generally more affordable for most players after the update next week. Let us know your thoughts about that, and now let's move into the sandbox portion of the update. And initially there are a bunch of weapon archetype changes, so Bungie will be bringing some changes for submachine guns, and for all sub-archetypes of SMGs, they're increasing recoil globally by 10%. On top of that though, they're reducing the mouse and keyboard stability bonus from 20% to 10%, so whatever platform you play on, there will be slightly more recoil, and perhaps on PC, SMGs will feel ever so slightly less laser-like. And arguably that recoil change will be felt most on console, but give us your thoughts on those adjustments down below. There'll also be some adjustments to range on auto rifles though, and so for rapid fire autos, Bungie say they've reduced the ADS damage fall-off scaler from 1.7 to 1.6. That'll be the same for adaptive auto rifles, but they're increasing the base damage of those from 14.25 to 15, and they're decreasing the critical hit multiplier from 1.6 to 1.55. So critical damage will go from 22.8 to 23.3 on adaptive autos, which as Bungie say should make them more forgiving. Then for precision auto rifles, they'll also get the reduced ADS damage fall-off scaler, and they outline a specific change to the Amit AR4 as well, where they're reducing the zoom from 17 to 15, which should overall make it easier to use in close range, but will knock a little bit of that long range capability back. So it'll be interesting to see how that one feels after the update on Tuesday. Bungie have also said that we're making two notable changes to pulse rifles on Tuesday, and the goal is to keep high impact pulse rifles near where they are now, but to also elevate other subfamilies to move back into contention. So they plan to increase the damage fall off start at 0 range by 1 meter, and that means pulse rifles with low range stats like rapid fires, lightweights and adaptives will all see a noticeable benefit to their damage fall off start distances. But at the same time, pulse rifles with higher range stats, such as the high impact frame pulses, will see little to no improvement. And they say combined with the reduction in most auto rifle ranges, the hope is that the change will allow faster firing, lower range pulse rifles to find room in the sandbox. And then secondly for pulse rifles, they say aggressive pulses have been overshadowed by high impacts, and they believe there is some room to improve their comparative range due to their distinctly lower ease of use. And so they're moving the ADS damage fall-off scaler from 1.7 to 1.8, which will elevate them over high impact pulse rifles in terms of damage fall-off distance, and give players a reason to take the trade-off in terms of lethality and forgiveness. So again, increasing the damage fall-off range at 0 stat by 1 meter, and increasing the ADS damage fall-off scaler to 1.8 times, should improve their range ever so slightly, and so it's going to be interesting to try those out as well. They're also going to be reining in fusion rifles, and specifically they're focusing on fusion rifles operating well outside of intended ranges. So they're reducing the minimum damage that fusion rifles can deal after damage fall-off from 50% to 45%. Bungie say this means that damage fall-off will occur more quickly once it starts, and will decrease to a lower value than it does currently in the game, which should help to reduce instances of feeling like you were mapped well outside of expected range. And part of that change is also focused on the fact that certain fusion rifle perks can enable them to hit those longer ranges. So the idea is a balancing effect between sort of base fusion rifle range and what some of the perks in the game can allow them to do. And next up, there are adjustments to sniper rifles, where Bungie are affecting both airborne effectiveness, but also body shot damage. So they're decreasing the airborne accuracy penalty in general by 20%, which should mean that sniper rifles are now as accurate at base as they were pre-AE with an Icarus mod equipped. And the other changes are primarily focused on making snipers less likely to be able to body shot kill players. So for aggressive snipers, they're decreasing the body shot damage from 157.5 to 135, but also increasing the critical hit multiplier from 3 times to 3.5 times. And they say for the moment, this will mean that in PvE, snipers will do less body shot damage as well, but there will be a buff to PvE sniper damage by a flat 15% in Season 23, which will sort of offset that. And additionally, for adaptive sniper rifles, they're decreasing the body shot damage from 131 to 119, and there'll be an increased critical hit multiplier from 2.95 times to 3.25 times. And finally, for rapid fire sniper rifles, they're decreasing body shot damage from 90 to 85, and they'll also increase the critical hit multiplier from 3.25 times to 3.45 times. But again, keep in mind that the change to non-critical damage in PvE will be offset at least slightly with a 15% damage buff in Season 23. And then moving on to shotguns, they're decreasing the airborne accuracy penalty for precision slug shotguns by 20%. So precision shotguns should hit shots easier in the air, but additionally they're decreasing the airborne pellet spread penalty for pellet shotguns by 20%. So interestingly, both types of shotguns there should improve in terms of airborne accuracy. And so those are the weapon changes that Bungie have outlined overall, but there will be a couple of adjustments to perks as well. And for Perfect Float, Bungie say it has strong benefits, but the duration is too short for something that just improves stats and requires extended combat. So they're increasing the base duration of Perfect Float from 6 to 10 seconds, and also increasing the extended duration from 7 to 12 seconds. And so inactive, Perfect Float will now be up for longer. And then for Kickstart, they point out it's one of the most popular damage perks on fusion rifles, and it allows them to have both a substantial damage buff and faster charge time without a difficult activation cost. And so to balance that, they've decided to reduce the damage bonus provided by the perk. So right now it's 20%, but it will be reduced to 15%. So a couple of interesting perk changes there. Give us your thoughts on those down below. And moving away from weapons, this is where we get into exotic armor balance changes. And both of these exotic nerfs are fairly substantial. So for Antaeus wards, Bungie have said, overall, they were granting too large a benefit for too little cost. And reflective vents will now require full class ability to deploy, and following deactivation, the class ability energy is drained proportional to the amount of damage reflected. But on top of that, Antaeus wards will now no longer provide an improved slide. So that one's taken a pretty big hit, as is the younger Hamkara's spine. So for hunters, they've reduced the trip mine grenade's bonus health from 100 to 70, but on top of that, they've removed the bonus 50% damage resistance that it grants. So that's pretty significant in itself, but on top of that, grenade energy is now provided on ability kills instead of just damage with abilities. So damaging enemies will no longer be beneficial, and it'll be the kills themselves that actually provide grenade energy back. And obviously in PvE especially, a lot of players are disappointed with that younger Hamkara spine change, so let us know what you think about it down below. The very final change that will actually feature as part of the update though is for Checkmate. And so for Checkmate Control, they'll be increasing the score to win from 100 to 125, but they'll also decrease heavy ammo spawns somewhat significantly, and now heavy will only spawn every 180 seconds as opposed to every 90 seconds. And so they'll be pretty much halving the amount of heavy ammo available inside of Checkmate Control. They've additionally said on the subject of Checkmate though, some of the changes we can expect to see soon also include that hand cannons will 3-tap at any resilience, plus rapid-fire pulse rifles will 3-burst at 6 resilience, high-impact pulse rifles will 2-burst at 5 resilience, and again they're reducing that heavy ammo spawn frequency. So keep those in mind as you head into Checkmate in the coming weeks. Plus for matchmaking, they've said that with the mid-season patch, they're compressing the skill band used for matchmaking in the control playlist, so players should think of it as reducing the number of divisions in the skill band. And the result should be that there are more players in each remaining division and therefore more players to match with, which will yield quicker matchmaking times while continuing to recognize differences in skill. So hopefully that'll improve quality of life, but they do add, with this change, the matchmaking experience for your first match or two will be out of sync as your skill gets remapped. But they plan to iterate on this into next season. And then very finally, for spawns in the Crucible, Bungie say previously we've made systemic changes and less targeted changes, but this time they plan to do the opposite, and they're specifically looking to address issues on Altar of Flame and Cauldron. But they add it won't fix every issue, but the hope is that this will succeed in resolving some of the more frustrating cases, and they'll continue to look at spawns on various maps moving forward. So those are some extra Crucible related changes that we'll see, and let us know your thoughts on those down below. It's worth mentioning right here some extras in terms of rotations and game modes for the remainder of the season. So for any of you guys who enjoyed Relic, the new party mode inside of PvP, Bungie have said that from week 11 of the season up until the end of the season, Relic will be back in Crucible Labs. So that's one to look out for if you want to play more of that. And additionally, for Checkmate, it's available from week 5 to week 10 in Crucible Labs. And that includes 2 weeks of Checkmate Control, but it will switch up to Checkmate Survival as well. And finally, we'll get 2 weeks of Checkmate Rumble to finish off the trial run for Season 22. So we will have at least had the opportunity to experience Control, Survival, and Rumble variants of that game mode, and give us your thoughts on Checkmate down in the comment section. As we mentioned at the start of the video though, mid-season patches often drop around the time of the kind of seasonal event, so this time around we get Festival of the Lost. We have previewed a bunch of the stuff we can expect to see this year in a video recently, so I'll link that down below if you want a more in-depth look, but this is a concept art for the armor that we're going to get for Festival this year. Of course it was community voted armor. There are some 3D renders of these armor pieces as well, although they don't have full color. So the concept art is the best preview we have for the moment. Plus the festival will have a bunch of new masks for 2023, so the Callus mask, Clovis Bray, Disciple, Good Boy mask, Morosov mask, Nimbus, Puka, and a couple of other variants will be added as part of the festival this year. But otherwise it looks like Haunted Sectors will be the key activity for the event this time around once again. The other component of course will be a bunch of cosmetic items for festival. Some of those will come from the event card, and all of that content's going to work pretty much in the same way we have seen in other events in Destiny 2. But on top of Bungie bringing back weapons from previous years, with things like Jurassic Green, Macabre, and the Horror Story with updated perks, there will be a new rapid-fire frame grenade launcher coming this time around. So it's a Void Power Launcher. It's called the Cosmic GSP, and the first trade slot, importantly, can get things like Impulse Amplifier, Clown Cartridge, and Field Prep, and that can be paired up with things like Repulsor Brace, Explosive Light, and also Destabilizing Rounds. So there are going to be a couple of good options there, but if you want to see the full roles for festival weapons this year, I'll link my recent video down below. That does it for the mid-season sort of patch preview and changes coming up in the remainder of Season 22. Otherwise though, as Bungie outlined for Season 23, they'll be adding SMGs, snipers, fusion rifles, adjustments to airborne effectiveness, and additional exotic tuning for things like Peregrine Greaves, Syntheseps, and more. You can see some of those changes on screen if you want to check them out in a bit more detail. But otherwise, let us know what stands out to you in terms of changes coming in Season 22. When Bungie give us more information about when that patch will drop, or additional changes, I will be sure to keep you posted, so definitely get subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss out on any content. If you've enjoyed the video today though, a rating below really does help us out. Once again, let us know what stands out to you in the comment section, but otherwise I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.